Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Gutenberg from Grana Games. Gutenberg is a 1-4 player mid-weight Eurogame which players are going to be trying to develop their printing presses, fulfill orders across 6 rounds of play, trying to do so as efficiently as possible while building up the literal cogs of their machine. To that end, what you're doing in this game is you're going to be starting by bidding on turn order, sort of. I say sort of because you're not bidding a currency, but rather players are going to have a certain number of action cubes that they can assign to the 5 actions you can take in the game, and the amount of action cubes you assign is going to determine who gets those actions first. So you can go ahead and assign over here. You can see if you assign no action cubes, you do not take that action at all. Any other number of action cubes means you're going to compare it to the other players, see who has more actions, and take those actions first. The actions you can take going in order are, first of all, choosing new orders to fulfill. When you choose an order to fulfill, you're going to go ahead and choose one card from each side of the board, if I can grab these up over here, and those are going to define the essential letters you have, as well as any augmentations you need to fulfill that order, and that's going to give you points and or money and or other bonuses in the game when you fulfill the orders. We'll come back to that later. For right now, we do have starting orders over here, and we'll show you how that phase works. But that's the first action you can take, gathering new orders for you to fulfill. The second action you can take is gathering various inks. Over here, you have various ink depots over here. You can choose a depot, take the first ink for free, the second ink by paying 1, and the third ink by paying 2. You do not have to take all of them, but you do have to take them from left to right as you gather inks. That's the second action you are bidding for priority order. Obviously, seeing the orders and what works well for your board, seeing the inks and what you need for your augmentations, those are going to be things that determine how much you want to try to bid on getting that action before other actions with a limited number of action cubes to spend. The third action is going to be this card over here, which is going to allow you to either move up 2 on that track, specifically the 2 shown here. So for example, if I take this card, I can move up this track 2 because that's that symbol. So I'm going to move up 1, 2, moving up on this track. And as you hit certain thresholds, you're also going to advance this, which will give you various bonuses as well. Alternatively, you can always cash this in to take 1 on any track. So if I don't like the one I'm left with, I can just say, hey, I'm going to go up that 1 track. It might help me for fulfilling orders. Again, we're going to come back to that soon. The fourth action is going to be adding a gear to your machine. Now I already have a bunch of gears here, so let's go ahead and remove them so you can see what this action would look like, although you can always replace gears. But effectively, you're going to take one of these gears, you're going to add it to your machine, specifically showing a quadrant, focused over here, and then from there, you'll have the opportunity of activating that ability. Each of these gears has a way that they connect to their different regions over here, their different size. In fact, I should rotate this properly so we have that. There we go. And then there we go, like so. There we go. Perfect. So over here, you're going to have the different zones here, here, and here. And as these gears turn, which is one of the first things you do every round, you're going to turn the gear. That's going to assign which of these zones you can activate, placing cubes to get various bonuses. So effectively, the first time you gather a gear, you're possibly getting one thing from it. But as you rotate the gears usually have 2 or 3 possible bonuses, so you can earn multiple ongoing bonuses from your gears as you rotate them each round. And once you're getting your 4th, 5th, and 6th gear, that's where you have some interesting decisions to make, both in terms of possibly giving up the action. We'll talk more about this in the strategy or the what I like and don't like, but very often I find in the game, it's not often worth giving up extra actions, with the exception being the gear. Once you have 3 gears, then you want to make a determination whether the gears you have are currently working in your favor, or whether you want to try to give that up so you can have more of a priority in a separate zone. That's going to be the gear action, where you add a gear to your machine, which will give you ongoing bonuses as it turns. Lastly, you'll go down here, where you take an action over here. Over here, the first 2 rounds of play, you can only take the first, second, and third action over here. You can only take some of these actions, I apologize, I said that incorrectly. You only take this action over here, which basically means either taking a new set of orders, taking money, taking some ink from the bag, or alternatively advancing any one of these up over here. That's the first rounds of play. Once you move further up on this track, as you go into rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, you have the opportunity to go ahead and commit to these patrons over here, where you have to either give an ink or have certain things in order to acquire these cards which are worth points in the game. So if I have 3 on the A track and 4 on the ink track, I can go ahead and acquire this card. And I feel like that seems really hard to do in round 3 over here. That's true, but you have the opportunity to do it as the game progresses. You can always take from where the marker is or to the left of that marker as you play. Those are the 5 core actions you do in the game. When a round starts, you rotate your gears. You now have the opportunity to go ahead and take the gear actions, which again either give you one-time benefits or alternatively give you discounts on buying new tiles for your printing press. We haven't talked about fulfilling orders yet. And then from there, you go through a cycle of secretly bidding on your priority around the actions, and then going through that action sequence, again, gathering new orders, gathering inks, moving up on your expertise tracks, taking a new gear, and then finally taking an auxiliary action, alternatively taking one of these things over here to get a chunk of points. When you're done with all of that, you'll go ahead and fulfill orders. When you fulfill an order, you have to have certain things. So for example, if we take these cards over here, Once you combine an order and an upgrade, or whatever this is called, this other card, once you combine the two of them, they're locked together. To fulfill this card, I have to have the I, O, and U. Now, at any point in the game, you're going to start with a few of these, and I do have the I, O, and U. I made sure to take those because that was a starting card for me. But as the game progresses, you can always buy new tiles for the cost of the current tiles you have +1, so they'll get increasingly more expensive as you play, although they can be helpful to make sure you have all the letters, to fulfill cards that require duplicate letters, or sometimes to fulfill multiple orders at once, because there are many ways you can gather extra orders throughout the course of the game, which we'll actually show you one in a second, and having multiple letters actually gives you the ability to fulfill those, which is the core source of points in the game. Then from over here, and that will give you whatever shows here, which is usually but not always going to be money. Then from the other card you have, that's going to define that I need to give in, so I need to give up a blue and a green ink, and I need to have level 2 in each of these, and they'll always show you different things, but they often are inks and levels of proficiency, and if I have either or one of those, that'll be 4 points or 3 points for having that. So again, the money comes from this card, but these are going to reward you with points. But if I do so, then over here, I'll be rewarded with an order pairing. You'll be able to go ahead and draw a new order that will go ahead and give you the opportunity to cash the new order in for even more points, keeping that engine going. That is how you fill an order. You're going to rinse and repeat that cycle until you get to the end of the game, and that is basically gonna that's basically Gutenberg, past any small things I may have missed. That's basically the game. You're going to be trying to bid on your action selection. You're going to be taking actions to gather orders, gather all the things you need to improve your expertise, gather inks, get gears, and get proficiencies, and then from there cash in orders and do so as efficiently as possible across 6 rounds of play, and that is how you play Gutenberg, which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. The game's actually pretty easy to teach. This is definitely a midweight Euro, possibly leaning a bit more on the lighter side. I know it's part of their expert line. I do believe that they make more often lighter games. This is an expert game for them for sure. I find this more in the midweight category. Very much like a typical Feld in terms of the weight it brings. And the gameplay itself, fairly easy to follow how it plays. It's got a solo mode as well, which is easy enough to dive into. Overall, I found the game fairly easy to get up and running without a lot of complexities as far as how it operates. It's fairly straightforward, and the things interlink fairly well. Game time comes in at roughly an hour. That can vary based on, how AP prone the players are, or even your player count as well. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off the bat with what I like, which is I like the action bidding selection with a caveat. The action bidding selection over here, where you try to prioritize what actions are most important to you and then you resolve ties in turn order, that's a fun little system to try to ensure that you get the things you want, because sometimes everything is good. It's always good to have points, to have inks. It's always good to have orders. It's always good to upgrade on these tracks. But sometimes it's really important for you to get this one, because that'll allow you to upgrade 2 on a track, and that'll allow you to fill a specific order, which will give you an extra 6 points because of the combination of things going on there, and that can be incredibly important, which means maybe it's worth doubling down on how much you want that spa, to the detriment of being able to prioritize any other spa. The fact that you both get a degree of control and agency over what is most important to you, while also hoping that even when you don't have turn order selection, you'll still end up with things that are beneficial, gives the game a nice little puzzle of trying to prioritize what your needs are as you go through the game. I also like the cog gears. The game doesn't have a lot of tableau building in it. Most of it is doing what you need in the moment to be able to get the next thing. Not a ton of tableau building. I think the 2 exceptions are the more tiles, the number tiles you have, the more efficiently you can fulfill orders, and then also getting these gears in play. Once you have 3 gears in play and they're rotating every round, that's going to give you a bunch of actions you can take. And again, they give you things like, either getting if you fill an order of a certain type, then you'll get extra 2 points. Getting a discount and buying new tiles of a certain letter. Getting a straight up, moving up 1 track on the expertise row. So that's going to give you your main tableau building. And so those first 3 rounds of play, getting your gears up and running, give you a lot more control over just how much you're able to get done in the game. I really appreciate that. And also the timing of how you fit them to your gears so that you can most efficiently take advantage of them. In general in the game, you always get something, which is nice. You're always going to get something as you go through the phases. This is not a cutthroat game of you get this, I get that. Well, I mean, it is a cutthroat game of you get this, I get that. But it's not a cutthroat game of you get this and I get nothing. I'll always get something and I'll always be able to use that towards my engine. But then it's how efficiently you combine all those things. Which letters work well for you? Which things you're going to combine to try to get those higher scoring cards? Or do you go for a bunch of easier to fulfill cards and you're able to knock out a few of them at once because you have the letters for them? There's a lot of small little things that all combine decently in this game to give you a puzzle of the orders to fulfill, and then these cards to go ahead and fulfill as well, which will give you chunks of points at the end of the game. They're going to give you 8 points apiece as you gather these, so there can be a lot of points, but you have to get higher in some of those tracks to get them, or give up precious inks along the way. And so overall, this is a fun engine of doing a bunch of things that work well, as you might imagine, for a Eurogame in Gutenberg. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, I wish the action bidding mechanism had more cubes. Because of the way the game works, the first player gets 7 cubes, which effectively means they have 5 cubes. I think this side over here with the first player, they have 5 cubes plus 2 to play with. If you don't want to give up an action entirely, which in my opinion is rarely worth it, sometimes it is, but rarely worth it, that means you only really have 2 cubes to play with. The next players from there have 3, 4, and 5 cubes to reward them for the tie-breaking aspect of first player, but that means that I like the system, but I wish there were more cubes to go around. I wish there was more agency in terms of how you place those cubes, or even that the game gave you ways to earn extra bonus cubes at the cost of some other things. Maybe you don't get another order, but instead you have a bit more priority for the rest of the game in turn order because you have an extra cube to play with. I wish the cube system had more going for it and more interaction with within the overall engine. As it stands, it's a well done way of showing your priority order, but without enough ways to play with that system that I felt like it was a good potential system, but I wanted to drop more from it. I also wish the ability tracks over here, these expertises, I wish they had some sort of ability tied to them. One thing we haven't talked about, we actually have a starting player bonuses over here, which I do recommend using. The game doesn't recommend using if you're first plays. I strongly recommend using them. I think they add to the game. So for example, this play over here, I'd actually start a little higher on these tracks. But as you have these cubes over here, as you move up these tracks, these are attached to kind of a generic, you need certain bonuses and whatnot, you need certain proficiencies. I kind of wish they were tied to in-game abilities as well. I think that would give you a lot more of a puzzle system if as you were moving up the track, they were needed for some things, but also enhanced your engine in some way. As it was, I felt like it was a bit of a missed opportunity. You have these tracks, you have these proficiencies, and what do? Practically speaking, not a lot. Additionally, the whole puzzle of type, the puzzle of trying to gather type, that's solved pretty quickly as you go through the game. You start off needing a few, but then from there, they ramp up in cost so quickly that at a certain point, it's not worth buying more. So you're going to buy a few more throughout the course of the game, maybe end up with like 7, 8 on the high end, but even that should be more than you really need or use in the game, just because of the sheer cost that each one get additionally more expensive as you buy them. And so that puzzle of earning letters, and again, I wish there were more things that gave you that. Maybe one of these discount tracks, maybe one of these specialty tracks actually gave you a discount on buying types, so you could be the player, if you ramped up one track, you actually had a bunch of types, which you still won't be able to cash in that much because you have to manage these in puzzles. I feel there's a lot they could have played with on these specialty tracks that really would have messed with how complex the engine is. As it was, I felt there were a lot of systems in Gutenberg that showed a lot of potential introductory promise without enough execution to really give me a meaty Euro game. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, the game heavily leans into the typical beige theme of everything. Everything here just looks very, very over-the-top beige. I will say these are very nice, by the way. These are little like extra upgraded like bits that really feel like printing presses. I like this overall. But past that, I'd say there's not a lot to necessarily not like about Gutenberg that I haven't already covered. I think this game does a lot of things. I guess let's move into final thoughts now. Gutenberg does a bunch of things well. And the way certain things combine and give you the puzzle of how to get what you need and fulfill contracts and fulfill orders in this game, it works. Everything about the game works. But I also feel everything about the game felt like it could have worked more. I felt like more could have been done, and there could have been a more interesting, more interlocking puzzle of different concepts here. And this could just come down to target audience. This could be the kind of thing that if you did all that, this game would be less accessible. As it stands, I find it's more accessible than some more complicated Euros, while being less, I guess, entertaining or shiny or sparkly. I'm using the wrong terminology, but think games like Five Tribes, or think games like, I don't even know, Bruges, or any Stefan Feld game. There's a whole bunch of games, what else is there? There's so many games, trying to look at my shelf now. Le Havre, that's a little more meaty, honestly. Lost Winds of Arnak. There are so many games out there that do so much in terms of the sheer sparkle of how sparkles shine, sparkle, glitteriness. I'm using all the wrong terms here. There are so many games that have a mid-weight Euro accessibility while also giving you a lot more of a compelling theme or puzzle to pull you in. And there's also games that do just a lot more strategically, that might be more dry in presentation, but just have a ton of interlocking mechanisms. And to me, Gutenberg falls into this weird middle category where it has neither of those. It feels like a dry, over-the-top, intense Euro, but it doesn't actually have that intensity to the gameplay itself, and so I find myself liking the system, but also wanting more from it. I think it would be a good introductory Euro, with the caveat that I'd probably recommend other introductory Euros over this one that I think just have more shelf appeal to them. For me, this is a 3 out of 5. I like it, I've enjoyed my plays of it. I don't feel the need to continue diving back into it, although I will say, if they introduced expansions that do those things I talked about, that gave you some abilities here, that really made the entire puzzle just that much more compelling to dive into, I think I'd be far more intrigued. I think this has a lot of potential and a lot of promise, and as it stands, it does the job. A 3 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Tzolk'in. If you want a game that gives you gears, but gives you a whole lot more brain burneriness, and even just visual appeal to it, Tzolk'in from CGE, fantastic game that is very, very meaty. You will not feel like you got quite as much done until you play it several times, but once you do master it, there's a lot going on there. And then if you're looking for something that has, I guess, another example of a game that has that slightly more intro-ness to the actual gameplay mechanics, but a whole lot more shelf appeal, Honeybuzz from Elf Creek Games. A fantastic game, not that meaty, not that heavy, but a whole lot more visually charming to actually sit down and engage with. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.